About 4 years ago, I started working my first job as a certified nursing assistant at a nursing home in my small town of Rocky Mount, Virginia. I was excited to start, especially since I love taking care of people, and because I was finally going to be making my own money. I usually worked 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., but on this night in particular, one other aide, Dawn, and I had to stay until 12:30, because coincidentally the 2 aides coming in behind us were going to be late. This meant that Dawn and I weren't exactly in a hurry to get our things done for the night. A lot of spooky things would happen at night. I know because I used to get mandated a lot to work 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. due to being short-staffed. Like seeing shadows, call lights going off in rooms that were unoccupied, or in rooms where someone just passed away in, and sometimes I could hear whispering. On this night, though, something terrifying happened to me that wasn't paranormal. On my first day of orientation, which was about 3 months prior to this happening, an aide warned me to never go outside in the back alone to dump the trash. Unfortunately, one of our duties as second and third shift CNAs was to take out the trash, because there were no housekeeping workers during those shifts. She told me that I should take someone with me, because there was a man lurking around the dumpsters at night who tried to snatch girls. Every time it'd get reported, and the cops were called, the man was already long gone. I didn't really take her seriously, to be honest, because I just thought she was trying to fuck with me and scare me. I honestly didn't think that something like that could ever happen in my town. On this night in question, it was about 12:20, almost time for me to go home, and I volunteered to take out the trash so I can sneak a call to my boyfriend while I was out there. By this point, I had completely forgotten what the aide had told me 3 months prior. I had my 2 barrels of trash with me and walked outside to the back parking lot to the dumpsters. I remember walking out into pitch black because the light that wasn't normally that bright anyways, that normally shined in the dumpsters, was out. I was annoyed because the light had been out for over a week and the repairman still hadn't fixed it. I turned on the flashlight on my phone and made my way over to the dumpsters. I was emptying the second barrel when I suddenly heard footsteps. I just thought that it was another aide from a different wing bringing out their trash or coming out for a smoke break. No big deal, so I finished what I was doing. When I turned around to start walking back towards the building, the light from my phone landed on a man standing a few feet away from me. He looked to be about average height and was skinny and had long, shaggy hair. He was just standing there, staring at me with his hands in his pockets. I was so startled that I couldn't even really talk. I wanted to ask him what he wanted, but at the moment I couldn't find the words. I was frozen in fear, and then I remembered what the coworker had told me 3 months ago. He slowly started walking towards me, hands still in his pockets, with an eerie smile on his face, but he didn't say anything. I thought to myself that I needed to get the hell out of there, so I pushed my trash barrels into him, which temporarily stunned him, and started running faster than I ever have in my life towards the building. I remember looking back as I was about to turn the corner of the building that led to the back door, and seeing the outline of the man just standing there. I swear I could hear him laughing. I made my way back into the building out of breath and trembling. I went back to my unit and told my coworkers what had just happened. They called the cops, and once again they couldn't find him. After this incident, they finally decided to install cameras out there in a better light. The man was seen maybe 2 or 3 times after, but eventually he just stopped. I still wonder what he wanted. Was he trying to kidnap me like that girl warned me about? Or was he just trying to scare me? Was he trying to rape me, or even worse? Part of me wants to know, and the other doesn't. All I know is that I never went out there by myself again. This happened to me 2 years ago. It was my first month on the job, and I worked night security at this pretty interesting place. For the record, I still work there and have more strange stories possibly to tell in the future. I'm a 38-year-old male. I've worked security jobs most of my life, and the graveyard shift. I was an event security guard for various well-known concert venues for years, so I've seen my fair share of strange things and crazy people. In other words, I don't scare easily, and hardly ever go into panic mode when a crisis comes up. The place I currently work in is a resort-style apartment complex. To get the layout, there are 3 floors of apartments with 50 units on each floor. This place takes up 1 city block with a golf course in back, indoor swimming pools, hot tubs, and a small movie theater. You name it, this place has it. Most of the residents are retired doctors, lawyers, and the otherwise rich. There are some younger people that live there as well, like stockbrokers and real estate agents and so on. Some just use their apartment in the summer and leave as soon as the snow falls. It's located in a well-known tourist town in the United States. The building itself has 12 exits on the first floor. The doors are locked at 11 p.m. You can exit, but you can't get back in unless you go to the front of the building and ask to be buzzed in or pick up the call box phone next to wherever the exit you are at. It'll ring the company cell phone, and I answer to come let you in. The front lobby is set up much like a hotel, with sliding glass doors which I lock when I start my shift. In the middle of the building on the first floor are 2 big slider doors which I also lock. They lead to the private parking lot. The lot itself is gated, and you need a code to get in. This was midsummer, and while it's never really hot here, tonight was an exception. It was still very warm after the sun had set. I came in 10 minutes to 11 to start my shift. We have a routine to hand off the keys, event log, and phone to the next person on duty. Despite its size, I'm the only person here at night. My coworker, who was leaving, told me the side iron gates that lead to the parking lot are open on one side because they were stuck. This was nothing new, and they often do get jammed. She told me the repair people would be in tomorrow sometime to fix them, but to just do some extra patrol out there tonight. This place sits across the road from a public park, and while the area is pretty decent, the park tends to breed druggies and homeless at night, who sometimes like to try and wander onto the property or cause trouble. My night started out uneventful. As a security guard in this place, we only have pepper spray, a large flashlight, keys, and a company cell phone to call 911 if need be. We're told not to confront with bodily harm, nor can we detain anyone. We're simply the eyes and ears to call the police if something comes up. Of course, you can defend yourself if you need to, but in all cases, if you're in danger, call the police is the company policy. Basically, I'm to walk the grounds and floors for anyone suspicious, watch the cameras in the security office, which is in the lobby, and otherwise try to stay alert. If a resident calls for a maintenance request, I would take the information down in the computer for day shift. Or if a resident called with a security issue, I would attend to it. Pretty easy enough job, I thought. I locked the doors to the parking lot and the lobby doors. I did a sweep of all the floors, and then found myself back at the desk. It was really quiet, and it rolled around at 3 a.m. I had just sat down to eat my lunch, when the company cell phone rang. The caller ID let me know it was from one of our outside call phone boxes. I picked it up and said, "Thank you for calling resort name here. This is Security Officer James. How can I help you?" All I heard was someone breathing heavy. I glanced at the cameras and could see the shadow of a figure standing just out of reach from the door in camera view. All I could see is the open call box and the metal cord from the phone. I asked again, "How can I help you?" The man started to breathe heavier, and then laughed. Then silence. It was one of those laughs you hear in a movie when the lunatic is about to do something terrible. I got up from my chair and started to walk out of the office and to the door he was at, when it rang again. This time from callbox number 2, which was further down. I quickly looked at the camera and saw this large figure in a hooded jacket. I knew this was strange as it was very warm outside. He was holding a black bag in his hands, but had his back to the camera. "I'm coming for you, and you're going to die," the voice said in a raspy, deep tone. He hung up before I had the chance to say anything. Then the phone rang again. This time I picked up before he could speak. I let him know the cops were on their way, and to leave the property now as he was on camera. He tried the doors, which were both locked. This time he was at yet another call box. This guy had to be running at top speed to make it to the next, and the next call box is there a good distance between doors on the outside. "I can see you. Are you ready to die? Because the cops won't make it here in time," the guy said. I spoke loud and pretended like I was talking to another security officer, and asked him to send 3 other security guards to such and such location, and that the police were dispatched. The guy slammed the phone down loud against the call box receiver. I watched him on camera take off into the darkness of the park area. I figured it scared him off. I was going to call the police, but honestly, the location of this place, it would take them at least 15 minutes to get here, and I figured this guy was just some tweaker from the park. I scanned the cameras, and walked to the back lot just to be sure no one was there. I had my pepper spray in my hands just in case, but no one was out there. I returned to my desk and wrote about what happened in the incident log. About a half hour passed. I had finished lunch and just was about to do some rounds when the phone rang again. This time it was from an unknown number. I thought it would be a resident calling for a repair issue or something. I picked up and said my normal line. "Where are the cops?" "I don't see them, but I see you," the voice said. Fuck, it was that guy again. I scanned the cameras but didn't see anything. I went to the front door to look out, and there was nothing but darkness and a few front floodlights on. "I know you're alone, and I'm gonna kill you soon," he said. I basically told him to get fucked and hung up. I called the non-emergency number to 911 and let them know what was going on. The dispatcher said she would send a car out to check the area and make contact with me. The next thing I hear is a loud thud against the glass windows to the day manager's office, which stood across from the security room. Another 3 loud bangs. I run to the door and unlock it. I pull up the shades and shine my flashlight through the window into the darkness. I catch the face of this hooded man. He looks to be about 40, with long stringy hair poking down, and these wild eyes. He looked right at me and grinned before slamming his head into the window to try and break it. I started yelling at him and told him the cops are coming and to get the fuck out of here. That's when he pulled out the biggest damn butcher knife I've ever seen and made a slicing motion like he would use it to cut my throat. This guy was crazy and probably on drugs. He continued slamming his body against the glass trying to break it. He used his head to try and break the window, but managed to bust his head open, so the window was splattered with blood. I backed out of the office and locked the door to it. I then decided to wait for the cops, as this guy was out of my control, and my pepper spray wasn't going to stop him. The last thing I wanted was to handle a bloody crazy person. He then ran to the nearest side door and took the call phone box off the hook. Then he ran to each call box and removed all the phones, which caused my cell company phone to ring and jam up the line. This guy had to be on meth or something, because he ran as fast as I could possibly imagine. I watched the camera and noticed to my horror that the sliding door to the garage was open. Now it was common for residents to go out to their cars and unlock the door themselves. It's just a sliding lock like the kind in department stores. But this was the last thing I need with this nut job running around. I sprinted as fast as I could across the building and took a shortcut through a couple banquet rooms to make it to the garage. As I was doing so, I saw the crazy guy running up to the garage pathway. I slid the door as fast as I could and locked it before he got to the entryway. He slammed his body into the glass, over and over, but the door didn't move. I locked the second set of doors in case he got through the outside ones. He would at least be trapped, or they would slow him down. I reached for my pepper spray, thinking maybe he would just leave, and yelled that the cops were there. He started laughing and howled, then held that knife up again before running into the darkness of the parking garages. I called the cops on my personal cell phone to let them know that the man had a knife. The dispatcher told me the cops would be there shortly, and I let her know what happened. I made my way to the front again and locked myself in the security office. At least this place had no windows, and I could watch on camera. I heard another loud thud and a bang, and realized he was at the front lobby doors trying to get in. I was hoping the cops would roll up any minute, but they didn't. While it probably didn't take them long, it felt like forever at this point. The guy was standing at the lobby doors with the knife in hand. He faced the camera, and by this time his hood had fallen back. He was bald-headed with wild, long, stringy, crazy hair on the sides of his head. His eyes were huge. I'll never forget that grin on his face as he mouthed to the camera, "Die, die, die," while making stabbing motions with his knife, blood running across his face from slamming into the glass. He then ran out into the darkness. About 5 minutes later, the cops show up. They sent one officer. He asked me what the guy looked like, and I told him I had camera footage. He drove through the area first and shined a spotlight. The cop returned to tell me he couldn't find anyone, and he had driven around the entire block and back area behind the golf course. I showed him the footage and printed out a picture from the camera. The cop said he didn't see any sign of the guy, and that he would patrol the area and to call back if he came again. It was now nearly 5 a.m. when the cop left. I waited until 6 when it was daylight and people were starting to get out and about before I walked around and hung up all the phones from the call boxes. And this guy literally took all 12 phones off the hook. When my manager came in during the morning shift at 8 a.m., I told her what happened, and she said they would keep an eye out and have a meeting to let everyone who worked here know and to be aware. They had an extra security guard on my shift for 2 weeks after, but the guy never returned. The cops never found out who the guy was either. To preface this, I work night shift at Walmart. My shifts are almost always 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., except in these first few months of the year. They usually cut back our hours, and sometimes I start at 11 p.m. or leave at 6 a.m. Last year, I'd say around September, when the weather was still nice outside, I went into Walmart during the day to buy some groceries. I had a few things in my basket and was walking from the back of the store towards the self-checkout area. I noticed out of my peripherals that a man, probably mid-20s, a little taller than me and wearing a baseball cap, was approaching me from the other side of the features, those promo displays that sit in the middle of the big aisles. When he was close, he started trying to talk to me like we were acquaintances. I see people I know all the time when I'm here. "Oh?" I asked, assuming he's seen me there in the mornings while I was working. Yeah, it's weird how every time I'm here I see the same people all the time. He kept rephrasing himself, and I didn't know what to say because it was pretty awkward. He kept trying to make small talk, as I didn't stop walking to the self-checkout, and was kind of just going along with the conversation like you do when some random person is talking about the weather. Now that I look back on it, when he told me he sees the same people all the time, I thought he looked a little familiar, and assumed he was a vendor and worked some mornings there. I mistakenly mentioned I work there and also see the same faces. He told me to have a nice day, and I checked out and went to my car, dismissing the interaction. A lot of fellow employees greet me at Walmart when I go there during the day, so I didn't think too much of it. Then it got super weird super fast. I was just leaving the parking lot, and the exiting road splits into a left turn only lane, and the other a straightaway. I was already turning and had stopped when this white Ford Explorer pulls up next to me and beeps loudly. I was already turning, but I looked into my rear view mirror, and sure enough it was that same guy from earlier. I recognized his face and his baseball cap. He sat at the stop watching me pull away. Alright, a little weird, but I thought he was probably just trying to be friendly. When I got home, I told my boyfriend, and he immediately thought it was pretty strange. Then said I was wrong for even engaging in conversation with this man because guys get the wrong idea. My BF also works with me on my shift, but his car has a blown head, so we've just been using mine to commute back and forth from work. So on nights that I don't work, my car is still there if he does. Keep in mind that as employees, we aren't allowed to park close to the store. We're limited to parking at the far end of the lot, or in front of the other stores in the shopping center. I have a typical spot. I always park in front of the AT&T place, which is next to the gym, which is right next to the Walmart. About 2 months ago, my BF said he went to walk out to the car on break and saw the white Ford Explorer parked next to it, the guy just sitting inside. When he saw my BF, he left. This happened again the same month, except my BF was sitting in the car, and the white Ford Explorer drove up to Walmart, then passed my BF, staring at him. Then last month, I was driving home from work. It was barely 7 a.m., still pretty dark outside, and I was cruising down the highway towards the exit from my town. There was a car following 2 lengths behind me, and we were both doing the speed limit. Nothing too abnormal. Suddenly, this car begins to speed up, gets in the fast lane as if to pass me, but slows down so that we're neck and neck. The driver turns on his interior light, waves at me, and then speeds off. It was the same guy in the white Ford Explorer. I just stared at him, bewildered. I didn't know what to think. And then it dawned on me. He knows where I work. He knows what my car looks like. It's pretty distinguishable, even from the back. I have shark fins along the top, decals and mud flaps. He was probably waiting for me to leave work, then followed my car when I left. Thank God he didn't follow me home, because I would have never realized it. I was even totally unsuspecting when I walked out to my car alone. Now, what happened a couple days ago is why I'm even posting this. I think this is starting to escalate. It was a typical night. Both my boyfriend and I worked, along with our coworker and friend whom I'll call Mark. When Mark works, we always park next to him so we can talk on lunch and breaks with the windows rolled down. Mark parks farther away from the store, pretty much in the middle of nowhere. So we finish up the night, clock out, and Mark heads out to his car while BF and I buy some stuff to make for dinner. We check out and head to the car, and Mark is still there, which is unusual for him since he books out of there like a bat out of hell every morning, with his window down. "Hey man, did you get my text?" he calls out, smoking a cigarette. "No, let me check my phone." My boyfriend pulls out his phone, and I see a pretty long unread text from Mark. Pretty much, this weird guy came out of nowhere and was touching and looking at the inside of your girlfriend's car. My immediate thought was, some random guy likes my car enough to come up and touch it. Weird, but okay. Like he just walked up and started touching the fins and looking inside it. Then when he saw me sitting there, he asked me about the decorations. I told him I didn't know anything about them, and that he told me to have a nice day. We immediately started checking for damages, slashed tires, and the like, but we didn't find anything. We get in the car, and the 3 of us just sit there contemplating the reason behind this. The Ford Explorer guy had almost slipped my mind since his encounters were a month or more apart, but then I started thinking about him again. There were 2 cars parked near us, a white 2010 Pontiac G6, and surely enough, a white Ford Explorer. Up until this point, I didn't know the make of the car he drove, but I knew it was definitely a white SUV. Mark said he came from the direction of those 2 cars, so unless he walked to Walmart at 7 a.m., one of those cars was his. The Explorer was facing the opposite direction, and I quickly wrote down the plate number. I started asking Mark what the guy looked like. About your boyfriend's height, kind of a gangster-looking guy. Keep in mind I've only seen the guy once when he wasn't in his car, which was about 4 months prior to this. The height sounded right, but I wasn't really sure. We decided to sit there and wait until this guy came out and confront him. Just as we were about to give up and leave, a guy starts walking our way out of Walmart. He was wearing a black hoodie, dark jeans and a camo bandana. When he saw us, he put his sunglasses on. Both of us looked at Mark. Is that him? Is that the guy? No, that's not him. The guy walks to the Explorer, sits in the driver's seat, and lights a cigarette with the door open. After he closed it, I shot back at Mark. Are you sure that's not him? Yeah, it's him, and that's the guy, Mark nodded. Explorer guy started his car and looped around our cars, staring at us, then looped again to exit the parking lot. Mark said he didn't want to tell us it was the guy because he didn't want my BF to lose his job. I'm pretty sure if Mark would have told us it was the guy, then some shit would have gone down. I'm pretty positive now that this guy has been stalking me. For how long, I don't know. I'm starting to think maybe even before he approached me that day in Walmart. It's obvious that the guy drove to Walmart. I assumed to buy shit, but since he walked out with nothing, I don't know if he was looking for me in the store or what. Saw my car, parked next to it, then realized while he was casing my car that Mark was sitting there. So we asked Mark about the shark fins to try and make him think he was just interested in how it looked and not being completely shady. I'm creeped the fuck out, but I have his plate number. This morning before we left for work, my BF bought me some pepper spray, and I'm now parking elsewhere, and I'm going to start asking coworkers if they'll walk me to my car in mornings when I'm alone. I don't know what I can do, or if anyone will take this seriously because he hasn't tried anything yet. I'm unfortunately a pretty dainty girl, too brave for my own good, and I couldn't fight my way out of a wet paper bag. I'm thinking this definitely isn't over. What is up, guys? Blue Spooky here, as always. I just wanted to thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far to the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed the video, please feel free to leave feedback in the comments below, as well as perhaps like, share, or subscribe if you feel so inclined. If you have a personal story that you'd like to submit, or you'd like to just send me a message, links to all of my social media will be in the description for the video below. This includes my Gmail, Twitter, and Facebook accounts. Go ahead and send me a message on any of those and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. If you do decide to send in a story, please be sure to include in the tagline what the theme of the story is, if it has any, the name of the story, and how you would like to be credited in the description of the video the story appears in. If you're curious at all about the music used in this video, the music is always listed in the description below, in the order which it appears. I also have links to the artists and list the tracks by name, just in case you want to find more of their work. Last but not least, if you have any criticism, please be sure to leave it in the comments below, as I'm always looking for new ways to improve the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.